Hi there, I'm Zach Kircher, and you're watching Kircher Talks Entertainment. So when I was a kid, I watched a lot more Simpsons than I probably should have, but looking back, there was one clip that I remember strongly thinking was pretty funny, but now that I'm an adult has stuck along with me as something that has become shockingly relevant and in a way that I'm not exactly happy about, and I think you'll understand why after you see this clip.
Oh, they have the internet on computers now.
Homer, Bill Gates is here.
Bill Gates? Billionaire computer nerd Bill Gates?
Mr. Simpson?
You don't look so rich.
Don't let the haircut fool you. I'm exceedingly wealthy.
Get a load of the ball job, Marge.
Your internet ad was brought to my attention, but I can't figure out what, if anything, CompuGlobal Hyper MegaNet does. So rather than risk competing with you, I've decided simply to buy you out.
This is it, Marge. I poured my heart and soul into this business, and now it's finally paying off. We're rich, richer than astronauts.
Homer, quiet. You'll queer the deal.
Oh, right. I reluctantly accept your proposal.
Well, everyone always does. Buy 'em out, boys.
Hey, what the hell's going on?
Oh, I didn't get rich by writing a lot of checks.
Yeah, I'm going there. So last time I made a video talking about a controversial gaming topic, that being the Switch 2 when the price was originally revealed. That seemed to really resonate with people, and so I'd like to keep making topical videos like this every now and then, not just for gaming news, but maybe for movie news every now and then, depending on what the topic is. In any case, this topic of all of the recent Microsoft layoffs that have happened over the past few months touches on so many things that mean something personal to me, and those things will guide my, well, for lack of a better word, rant today. What I'm about to talk about in this video will mostly be focused on Microsoft, but on the whole, I'm just pissed about where the gaming industry is headed, and I think a lot of you have cause to be pissed about that as well. So for those of you who might not be aware, because I know some people who watch my channel don't really care about video games, but for those who don't know, in May of this year, as well as July of this year, Microsoft as a company, the whole entire company, not just Xbox, effectively laid off 15,000 people, with a significant portion of those people coming from all of the companies that work under the Xbox gaming bubble, if you want to call it that. And in that, there were a lot of games that were canceled, as well as entire studios that got shuttered. I'll go ahead and list off some of the examples here. The Perfect Dark reboot, which was headed up by a now defunct studio that never released a single game, that being The Initiative. There was a new intellectual property that was being developed by the team behind The Elder Scrolls Online. There was Everwild by Rareware. And there was going to be a new first-person shooter from John Romero, who's basically the grandfather of first-person shooters. That'd be like pulling funding from a Martin Scorsese mob film. So those are only a few examples here, but you can list off some others, like the fact that Sledgehammer Games, one of the developers behind Call of Duty, mind you, one of the most profitable gaming franchises out there. Some people who work for them got laid off, and then also the team behind Candy Crush, again, which makes $1 billion a year, about 10% of their workforce got laid off. You might think that's crazy, right? Why are all these layoffs happening despite Microsoft having one of its most profitable quarters ever? Well, in typical corporation fashion, all of these layoffs are happening and they're reporting all of these record profits because they are reducing costs. And what better way to get rid of costs than by getting rid of people, right? In any case, all of these layoffs are happening because of our good old friend AI, and the gargantuan capital investment that Microsoft is putting into Copilot and other AI tools that they're developing. And believe me, as much as I would love to just put a bunch of smack on the whole AI trend in general, I'm not making this up. You can go ahead and corroborate this across multiple sources. Now, Microsoft and their shuttering of 15,000 plus jobs is indicative of a bigger issue, not just with gaming in general, but the American and, let's face it, global economy at large, where these greedy jerk executives are prioritizing the predictable, but nonetheless very bad things run things, when it comes to like managing their businesses. I say that because, ever since I graduated college, I've worked in the corporate sector. So I'm familiar with the fact that, yeah, layoffs do happen. It's just a sign of the times, really. Like, some companies project they're going to do well one year and then they miss their targets. And unfortunately, they have to shed some aspects of the business in order to stay afloat and make sure that people get paid and, families get fed. Like, that's just how it is. Like, layoffs happen. It sucks, but that's just how business is. Heck, I mean, like, when I got laid off from my first job after college, it was a result of the COVID pandemic. And so, obviously, when I no longer had a job and I no longer had a source of income, I think everyone remembers how bad those times were. It's like, yeah, it was an uncertain time and I was anxious as to what was going to happen, but it's not like I was surprised by that happening because, everyone was getting laid off and all of these people were getting furloughed. It's what was expected. But Microsoft is a unique case here of corporate excess and greed because this was a deliberate business move to go all in on AI. And in order for the executives to, go to their earnings call and boast about record-breaking profits and their stock price going up, costs have to be made. And those costs, they result in an actual cost of human value and people being able to feed their families. I mean, I'm sure you could go onto TikTok right now and find countless examples of now former Microsoft employees talking about how much their lives are ruined by this whole thing. It's just disgusting to me that Microsoft, being literally the biggest company in the world and one of the most monopolistic too, and even then, their success has to come with these huge prices. It is not just the fact that, people have lost their jobs. It's like their time and their creativity has been put to utter waste. You think about all these people like on the ground floor making these games. Tango Gameworks, for example, based in Japan. They released Hi-Fi Rush early in 2023 and everyone loved that game. I mean, it was nominated at the Game Awards, for goodness sake. And yet, several months into 2024, that whole entire company was shut down. It was a highly successful game. Everyone loved it. And yet that wasn't enough. Or Forza, for example. Like, Forza Motorsport was probably the one huge competitor against Sony's Gran Turismo series of racing simulators. The Turn 10 studio, the studio that's behind Forza, basically the whole entire team that was behind the Motorsport series, gone. No longer employed. And so the people who had these jobs, now they have to suffer, trying to find a job in probably one of the worst times to find a job ever. And they have to somehow find money to pay their mortgage, to pay for food, all the things. And then we as consumers who love video games, now we're stuck, looking at what could have been, what kind of projects they could have made if they were allowed to keep on doing what they're doing, and Microsoft still being able to have their cake and eat it too. I mean, there are other problems I could talk about with Microsoft, with the fact that, like, Game Pass is basically a double-edged sword where, sure, a developer could put a game on there and they get, like, a cut from Microsoft to compensate for the lack of sales they'll get from it. But again, what are they missing by, bypassing Game Pass, just selling the game outright, and maybe doing Game Pass later? Or even then, if someone buys a physical copy of an Xbox title, they're not even getting the full game on the disc. Like, it's basically just a useless game key at that point. Where does that ultimately leave all of this? Like, what am I getting at? Obviously, if you couldn't tell, like, by my Cuphead shirt, gaming is very important to me. And so I want to make sure that, we as gamers get to enjoy the hobby that we love, but also the people who are employed by this industry aren't being screwed over, Gaming is arguably at the most profitable and accessible time it's ever been in. If the gaming industry was to crash, it'll still survive. Like, I don't have any doubt that, like, there will still be companies out there that will get their money and be able to make the projects they want to make. But what I do think is inevitable is that if the big wig gaming companies, and really all of the, like, big companies and politicians in positions of power, if they keep making decisions that are completely out of touch with what we as the consumers want, nobody wins. Well, maybe the executives will win, but that's to say, like, if us consumers are to retain any sort of agency and power in the economy, like especially in the gaming industry, we need to not only speak up about these issues, but we actively have to do something about them. I say that knowing full well that over the past few months, I've purchased physical copies for my PlayStation of Doom the Dark Ages and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which are both Microsoft published titles. That's the unfortunate thing is I want to support good developers who are making good games so that they, in turn, can keep making good products. But you have to go through this horrible company and give them money first in order for others to get part of that piece of pie. And so I'm not necessarily saying that you can't or shouldn't give any more money to AAA gaming companies, but for all of these reasons that I've said and more, and some other examples I'll give here in a second, we just need to be aware of the issues that these companies are causing and try to fight back against it. And yeah, Microsoft is not the only culprit here in all of this stuff. I mean, shall I remind you of some of the other scummy things that companies in the gaming industry have done in recent years? Going all the way back to 2017 when Star Wars Battlefront 2 came out. The whole loot box fiasco where even European governments got involved in calling them out on their BS for trying to make that game a casino for children. Nintendo got a lot of flack for millions of Joy-Cons for the Switch experiencing stick drift, myself included, and Nintendo basically got away with it. There's the whole thing of Ubisoft telling their customers to get comfortable not owning their games, which... no.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
There's all of the scandals with sexual misconduct and a lot of other things that I don't want to get into for Activision Blizzard. That is a whole rabbit hole in and of itself. Recently, among many controversies with Bungie, they got caught stealing art for their projects. And then, of course, there's Sony and all the things that they've done. But a couple of examples I'll give are their decision to block tons of people from various countries around the world from buying their games on Steam, not to mention the whole controversy with
That's the second time!
Helldivers 2 and you needing to link your PSN and Steam accounts, which thankfully they rolled back on. You'll notice in a lot of these stories that these companies were hurt in more ways than one, not just through their own greed and incompetence, but because people spoke up about it, and they even brought forth class action lawsuits and stuff. But most importantly, these people voted with their wallets. You may not feel like your own individual voice will get heard in all of this, and believe me, I don't know if you want to call it imposter syndrome with that, but needless to say, if you feel that way, I absolutely get it. But if you join in with an ever-growing chorus of people stating how they're fed up with the way things are, like with the Stop Killing Games initiative, then change will be made. But because these companies like Microsoft, they need to feel like they're vulnerable. And in order for that to happen, either we band together to stop these things from happening, or the game industry will likely just crash on its own. Even though it would be good for, these executives to feel the weight of their failure, it's not like if they do fail, they're the ones who are going to receive the biggest consequences of it. It's going to be the people on the bottom, like the people making the games, let alone the people testing the games, because, those people are treated poorly in their own right. Ultimately, what I'm saying is, I would hope that you do your best to support good companies that have good people who seem to care for what they're doing, because those people are the future, not those greedy executives who don't even care for video games at all. And I'm not saying all of this is some kind of populist, anti-capitalist, protester or anything like that. I'm just against corruption and bad things. But believe me, if someone comes along such as Local Thunk who made Balatro all on his own, or if you have Billy Basso making Animal Well on his own and then collaborating with Donkey's company Big Mode, I think those people deserve all the success in the world, and they should, because they're making games that people care about, and when you buy those games for a significantly cheaper price, that money goes more to just individual people who care. And I could list off a whole other host of examples, such as the team that broke away from Ubisoft to make their own studio and ended up making Clair Obscur Expedition 33, which will most likely be the front runner for Game of the Year. That is the kind of thing we should support, not the scum of the earth who will tell you that a rudimentary AI is more valuable than the lives of 15,000 families. Anyway, that's all I have to say for today, so that's it. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving the video a like. For doing both of those things will help my channel grow, and I will see you all in the next one.